What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Twins Latest. I'm Sam Calder, and I hope you're all doing well on this fine Thursday. We've got a fun episode today with lots to talk about, so let's not waste any time and jump right on into it. We talked yesterday about the current state of the Twins bullpen. Well, they must have heard me because they have been reported to have expressed interest in free agent relief pitcher Sir Anthony Dominguez. That was first reported by Darren Wolfson of 5 Eyewitness News. Dominguez has spent 7 years in the majors, most of which came with the Philadelphia Phillies. He's thrown 306 career innings with a career ERA of 3.53. He throws a fastball that can reach triple digits. He throws that and his sweeper collectively 65% of the time. I mention that because his sweeper is actually one of the best pitches in all of baseball, according to Stuff Plus. Stuff Plus is basically a metric that measures the quality of a certain pitch. 100 is considered league average, and Dominguez's sweeper was at 130 last year, which is extremely high. Dominguez spent last year with the Orioles and the Blue Jays, and he threw 62 and two-thirds innings with a 3.16 ERA and 79 strikeouts. He would easily be the best reliever in this Twins bullpen if they were to go out and sign him, and he would project to be their closer. But I am actually of the belief that the Twins should opt to stay away. Dominguez has 40 career saves, which is fine. Shows that he's capable of shutting a game down when it's close and he's needed to. But that's in comparison to 20 blown saves, meaning 33% of the time that he's being relied upon to shut a game down, he hasn't been able to do so. And that may not sound like a huge number, but let's compare that to some other MLB closers around the league. Edwin Diaz of the Dodgers, who's largely considered the best relief pitcher in baseball, he's blown a save in only 14% of his career opportunities. Josh Hader of the Astros, that number is at 11%. And Yohan Duran, former Twin, number is also at 11%. So needless to say, a 33% blown save percentage is a very big red flag if we're looking at this guy to be our closer. Additionally, Dominguez has some very concerning walk issues. He had a walk rate of 13.8% in 2025. He had 36 walks over those 62 and two-thirds innings. According to StatCast, that was in the first percentile of all pitchers last year. Among all pitchers with 60 or more innings pitched in 2025, he had the fourth lowest walks per nine, which is just how many batters you walk per every 9 innings pitched. And by lowest, I really mean highest, because of course you want a low number when it comes to walks. Now, last year was a career worst when looking at the walk issues. I mentioned his walk rate was at 13.8%. Usually for him, that number is right around 10%. Still not good, but not at the very bottom of the league. The other big concern I have is financially. The average salary for an MLB closer is right around $10 million per year, which is not crazy high, especially considering some of the contracts that have been signed recently. But for perspective, that would be the third highest annual value of any Twins contract, and it would be about double what every other reliever in the Twins bullpen is making combined. In my opinion, when factoring in Dominguez's skill set, along with the fact that the Twins are in a very bad place financially, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, in my opinion. And if you're going to be spending roughly $10 million on the bullpen, I'd much prefer you spread that money out across 2 or 3 relievers versus just one. So I don't think the Twins should go after Sir Anthony Dominguez, but that's just me. But in some other news, roster move news, that is, the Twins acquired utility player Eric Wagaman from the Marlins earlier this January. And I wanted to circle back to this because I hadn't talked about it in either of the first couple episodes. Wagaman was a full-time starter for the Marlins in 2025. He spent time at left field, right field, and third base, but the majority of his time in the majors has been spent at first base. Last year, he hit .250 with 9 home runs across 514 plate appearances. I don't anticipate him being an everyday player, but I think he'll make an outstanding platoon option against left-handed pitching. He hit .283 with 20 extra base hits in less than 200 plate appearances versus lefties last year, and he will be an excellent platoon option for someone like Matt Wallner in the outfield or even Victor Caratini at first base. Wagaman doesn't do anything at a elite level per se, but I think he's a better hitter than the surface level numbers would reflect. According to StatCast, he underperformed compared to his expected stats. His expected batting average was .259, which was actually well above league average last season. He doesn't strike out much, and he hits the ball hard, and he hits the ball hard to all parts of the field. Roster Resource has him projected to start the year at AAA, with how many other options, especially at utility, the Twins already have. But I'd much rather see him in the majors over a guy like James Outman, an outfielder who the Twins got in return for Brock Stewart at the trade deadline last year. It's certainly not a flashy move by the Twins, but Wagaman is a guy I really believe will help them this season. He won't be an everyday player for the Twins by any means, but that could very well change should we see someone in the outfield get hurt. We know Byron Buxton has a track record of injuries. Matt Wallner has dealt with some in his career as well. But at the very worst, he's a middle of the lineup hitter against lefties and can be a pinch hitter in certain situations. I mean, I have to assume that if there's a runner on base and the other team brings in a lefty, Eric Wagaman is the first guy off the bench. So I'm a very big fan of this move for the Twins. But let's shift gears to the big picture of the MLB world. MLB.com released their first power rankings of the 2026 offseason back on January 8th. And granted, there have been a handful of notable changes to teams since then. But they have the Twins ranked 25th. And despite my lack of optimism in Minnesota having a playoff caliber team, I think being ranked 25th is a little bit too low. This is a team that has a lot of unknowns, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Of the 9 projected starters in the Twins lineup, 7 of them were above average hitters last year by WRC plus, and WRC plus stands for weighted runs created plus. It's an advanced metric that measures a hitter's offensive value and adjusts it based on the ballpark and environment that player is in. One of those 2 guys in the Twins projected lineup that was ruled below average by that metric was Royce Lewis, and we've seen him be absolutely dominant when he's healthy. Unfortunately, though, as we know, he hasn't been healthy very often, and that's where the unknown piece kind of comes in. But if we can get, 75% of scorching hot Royce Lewis like we've seen, I can promise you that is not a below average MLB hitter. Additionally, this is not a team like we've seen in previous years with the Twins where it's just all power and every at-bat is just an extra base hit or a strikeout. This is a team that's going to put the ball in play and get on base for the guy behind him. And in my opinion, the lineup is not even the Twins' biggest strength this year. That would be the starting rotation. Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan are a great 1-2 punch. That goes without saying. But there is so much depth at starting pitcher this year as well. Bailey Ober had a down year last season, but in reality, it probably shouldn't have been as bad as it was. He finished the year with a 5.1 ERA, but his expected ERA, according to StatCast, was 4.36. Still not great, but that's serviceable. And I think a lot of that can be contributed to just not being fully healthy last year. His average fastball velocity was down 1.5 miles per hour. That just doesn't happen unless something isn't right. And his strikeout percentage was also down almost 8% from 2024. So my guess is the hip injury that sidelined him last year really affected him. And it was his left hip, which is his plant foot, which is extremely important, especially when you consider just how important hips as a whole are for a pitcher and how much lower half rotation is required, 80, 90 times a game. So I expect Ober to be much more like himself in 2026. Then you have the young trio of Zebby Matthews, Simeon Woods Richardson, and David Festa. Matthews was very on and off last year. He'd have a couple good starts in a row and then just get absolutely lit up. The thing that really hurt him last year was the hard contact, and he's not a guy that gets a lot of ground balls either. So when guys are getting hard hit fly balls consistently, that's an issue. But he's got a 6-pitch arsenal, including an elite slider. And former Twin Danny Coulomb said last year that Zebby Matthews has ace potential. Now, maybe that's just a teammate being nice about his former teammate, but I think that's worth something that a fellow MLB pitcher would say that. So I think if we see him get softer contact this year, he'll be a very nice 4th or 5th starter at the very least. I'm a little less optimistic in Simeon Woods Richardson and David Festa. They also struggled with hard contact, but they also don't induce as many swings and misses as Zebby Matthews does, as well as they walk more guys. I think Festa can somewhat be contributed to having never been in the majors before, and now he'll have a full offseason to improve. But Woods Richardson, I would bet, is the guy who's going to end up being the odd man out. Like, unless they do a six-man rotation, which is becoming more and more common in the MLB. Now the bullpen will, in all likelihood, be well below average, as we talked about yesterday. But all in all, I think the Twins should be much closer to the 15 to 20 range of the power rankings compared to 25th, where MLB.com has them. But then let's wrap up the episode. We've got today's player preview and the second player preview. It's going to be outfielder Matt Wallner. And I should note, I'm not going in any particular order for these player previews. I'm kind of just going to jump around, keep things interesting, and keep you guys on your toes a little bit. Matt Wallner is entering his 5th season on the big league roster. He spent some time in left field as well as at DH, but the vast majority of his time in the majors has come as the Twins right fielder, and that is because he has an absolute cannon for an arm. According to StatCast, his arm strength metric was in the 99th percentile of all outfielders last year. It was also in the 99th percentile in 2024, and in 2023, it was the 100th percentile, meaning there was not a single outfielder with a better arm than Matt Wallner. Safe to say, do not run on this man. Obviously, though, offensively, it's been a roller coaster ride, to say the least. Last year as a whole, he had a batting average of just 202, but had an on-base percentage of 311, which, all things considered, that's pretty good for a guy who barely hit 200. His expected batting average, according to StatCast, was only 205, so it's not one of those situations where he just got unlucky and hit the ball right at people. He just wasn't a great hitter last year, plain and simple. It's also not encouraging that this isn't the first time we've seen Wallner really struggle at the plate. Going back to 2024, he was on the MLB roster to begin the year, but after hitting just .213 with 27 strikeouts and 59 plate appearances, he actually got sent down to AAA. And that's one thing if, you're 22 and you just haven't seen a lot of major league pitching yet. But when you're 26 with multiple seasons in the majors at that point, that's a red flag. And it looked like things were finally getting figured out as after he got called up from AAA in 2024, he hit .272 with 25 extra base hits across 55 games. And that led to a lot of optimism around him entering last season. And it unfortunately didn't amount to much over the course of the year. I really want to be in on Matt Wallner. I really do. And I really want to tell you that he's going to have things figured out in 2026. But I just can't say that with confidence. Now, for what it's worth, batting averages across the league are lower. Hitting 275 in today's game is kind of like hitting 300 20 years ago. But it's awfully rare that you see someone hit right around 200 and be an impactful hitter at the major league level. Kyle Schwarber of the Phillies is kind of the main guy that's done that for several years. But he also hit 45 home runs the years he was hitting right around 200. Matt Wallner's 162-game pace last year would have projected out roughly 34 home runs, which doesn't sound like a huge difference, but when you're being relied upon for hitting the ball out of the park, 34 home runs over an 162-game season is honestly a little underwhelming, and that may sound overly critical, but that's roughly one home run every 5 games, and if you're trying to make a living off the long ball, you'd certainly hope for a little more than that. However, on the positive side, we did see some progress when it came to putting the ball in play and getting on base. His strikeout percentage dropped to 29%, which, for the record, still isn't good, but, that was in the 6th percentile of all hitters. It was down, though, from 36.4% in 2024. Additionally, he has gotten better at drawing walks. His walk percentage was at 11.7% in 2025. That was 84th percentile among all hitters across the league, and the best among any eligible Twin hitter last year. So while there is still a lot of room to grow for Matt Wallner, we did see improvement in certain areas in 2025. If he can get his batting average up to around, 250 like it has been in recent years, I think we're going to be very, very pleased. And additionally, he's just got to stay healthy. He had a slow start to the year last season, then he had an injury mid-year, and just couldn't really seem to get any momentum going consistently. But there's a lot of upside for Matt Wallner, and if he can get some things figured out, he will be a very, very exciting player to watch in 2026. But that is going to do it for today's episode of Twins Latest. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe and give the video a like. If you have any Twins-related topics that you want me to hit on in a future episode, please let me know in the comments below. But until next time, I'm Sam Calder, and so long.